Eric, you coming in to hang out and read? Orale! Sorry. What up? I am waiting for my kid in MMA again, so we're going to read another Richard Bach book. We might go through... Now, we're going to have to go through a couple of chapters on this one because... I don't know. I mean, technically it's more pages, but Jonathan Livingston Seagull is definitely a shorter book. But this one is Illusions, The Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah. Even though I read Jonathan Livingston Seagull when I was a child, I did not read another one of Richard Bach's books until probably my early to mid-20s. I know, I was cracking up too, Eric. But the beads are on the way. I'm really excited. Essay. It took me a minute to figure out how to spell essay, and I feel like it's wrong, spelling it E-S-S-A-Y. Damn. Well, hopefully we can stay live enough to read. Let me do a quick share. There we go. If you guys would do me a favor and share the live. There we go. If you guys would do me a favor and share the live. TikTok. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Doesn't matter where I go. Seems I keep getting shadow banned. Whether it's Facebook hiding my shit, TikTok hiding my shit, Instagram hiding my shit. It's very nefarious. I guess I take it as a compliment, you know? The powers that be don't agree with the things that I'm sharing, which I guess is probably a good thing, right? Okay, we are reading Illusions, The Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah by Richard Bach. Here, I'll flip it for a minute here. We're only going to get through a couple of chapters, probably, because I've got till about an hour. So, although, unfortunately, there are no pictures in this book. We had pictures last time. Hey, Bluebird. We had pictures last time. No pictures this time. So you guys will just have to use your imagination. But it took years for Richard Bach to write another one after Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Okay. Was that a sales pitch, Gary? This is a fantastic book, and back at you, Gary. The book you really want to read is one that you can sit here and just listen to instead of having to go pay $13 to somebody on eBay. Is that yours on eBay that you're trying to sell here in my chat? The Inner Work. Okay. I'll put it on my list of potential things to read. I loved Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Yeah. Hey, how are you, Ken? Okay. So, this is not my favorite part of the book, but it is also a fantastic story. And this is a story that I really like to retell. I don't tell it exactly, but here we are, my friends. There was a master come unto the earth, born in the holy land of Indiana, raised in the mystical hills east of Fort Wayne. The master learned of this world in the public schools of Indiana, and as he grew in his trade as a mechanic of automobiles. But the master had learnings from other lands and other schools, from other lives that he had lived. He remembered these, and remembering became wise and strong. so that others saw his strength and came to him for counsel. The master believed that he had power to help himself and all mankind, and as he believed, so it was for him. So that others saw his power and came to him to be healed of their troubles and their many diseases. The master believed that it is well for any man to think upon himself as a son of God. As he believed, so it was. And the shops and garages where he worked became crowded and jammed with those who sought his learnings and his touch. And the streets outside with those who longed only that the shadow of his passing might fall upon them and change their lives. It came to pass, because of the crowds, that the several foremen and shop managers bid the master leave his tools and go his way, for so tightly was he thronged that neither he nor the other mechanics had room to work upon the automobiles. So it was that he went into the countryside, and people following began to call him Messiah and worker of miracles, and as they believed, it was so. If a storm passed, as he spoke, not a raindrop touched a listener's head. The last of the multitude heard his words as clearly as the first, no matter lightning nor thunder in the sky about, and always he spoke to them in parables. And he said unto them, within each of us lies the power of our consent to health and to sickness, to riches and to poverty, to freedom and to slavery. It is we who control these, and not another. A millman spoke and said, easy words for you, master, for you are guided as we are not, and need not to toil as we toil. A man has to work for his living in this world. The master answered and said, once there was a village of creatures along the bottom of a great crystal river. The current of the river swept silently over them, all young and old, rich and poor, good and evil. The current going its own way, knowing only its own crystal self. Each creature, in its own manner, clung tightly to the twigs and rocks of the river bottom, for clinging was their way of life, and resisting the current, what each had learned from birth. But one creature said at last, I am tired of clinging. Though I cannot see it with my eyes, I trust that the current knows where it is going. I shall let go and let it take me where it will. Clinging, I shall die of boredom. The other creatures laughed and said, fool! Let go, and that current you worship will throw you tumbled, smashed across the rocks, and you will die quicker than boredom. But the one heeded them not, and taking a breath, did let go, and at once was tumbled and smashed by the current across the rocks. Yet, in time, as the creature refused to cling again, the current lifted him free from the bottom, and he was bruised and hurt no more. And the creatures downstream, to whom he was a stranger, cried, see, a miracle! A creature like ourselves, yet he flies! See the Messiah, come to save us all! And the one carried in the current said, I am no more Messiah than you. The river delights to lift us free, if only we dare let go. Our true work is this voyage, this adventure. But they cried the more, Savior, all the while clinging to the rocks. And when they looked again, he was gone. And they were left alone, making legends of a Savior. You're very welcome, Scotty. And it came to pass when he saw that the multitude thronged him the more day on day, tighter and closer and fiercer than ever they had, when he saw that they pressed him to heal them without rest and feed them always with his miracles, to learn for them and to live their lives. He went alone that day unto a hilltop apart, and there he prayed. And he said in his heart, Infinite, radiant is, if it be thy will, let this cup pass from me. Let me lay aside this impossible task. I cannot live the life of one other soul, yet 10,000 cry for me for life. I'm sorry I allowed it all to happen. If it be thy will, let me go back to my engines and my tools, and let me live as other men. And a voice spoke to him on the hilltop. A voice neither male nor female, loud nor soft, a voice infinitely kind. And the voice said unto him, Not my will, but thine be done. For what is thy will is mine for thee. Go thy way as other men, and be thou happy on the earth. And hearing the master was glad, and gave thanks, and came down from the hilltop, humming a little mechanic's song. And when the throng pressed him with its woes, beseeching him to heal for it and learn for it and feed it nonstop from his understanding and to entertain it with his wonders, he smiled upon the multitude and said pleasantly unto them, I quit. For a moment the multitude was stricken dumb with astonishment. And he said unto them, If a man told God that he wanted most of all to help the suffering world, no matter the price to himself, and God answered and told him what he must do, should the man do as he is told? Of course, master, cried the many. It should be pleasure for him to suffer the tortures of hell itself, should God ask it. No matter what those tortures, no matter how difficult the task. Honor to be hanged, glory to be nailed to a tree and burned, if so be that God has asked, said they. And what would you do? The master said unto the multitude, if God spoke directly to your face and said, I command that you be happy in the world as long as you live, what would you do then? And the multitude was silent. Not a voice, not a sound was heard upon the hillsides across the valleys where they stood. And the master said unto the silence, in the path of our happiness shall we find the learning for which we have chosen this lifetime. So it is that I have learned this day and chose to leave you now to walk your own path as you please. And he went his way through the crowds and left them, and he returned to the everyday world of men and machines. Chapter 2. If so, be that G. Oh, God. No, I thought you, Zephyr, I thought you were saying be that G. God said, go do you, boo. Because all that I want from you is your happiness, not your suffering, not your anguish. It was toward the middle of the summer that I met Donald Shimoda. In 4 years of flying, I had never found another pilot in the line of work I do. Flying with the wind from town to town, selling rides in an old biplane. $3 for 10 minutes in the air. Be happy, exactly. But one day, just north of Ferris, Illinois, I looked down from the cockpit of my fleet, and there was an old Travelair 4000, gold and white, landed pretty as you please in the lemon emerald hay. Mine's a free life, but it does get lonely sometimes. I saw the biplane there, thought about it for a few seconds, and decided it would be no harm to drop in. Throttle back to idle, a full rudder slip, and the fleet and I fell sideways toward the ground. Wind in the flying wires, that gentle, good sound, the slow pock-pock of the old engine loafing its propeller around. Goggles up to better watch the landing. Corn stalks, a green leaf jungle swishing close below. Flicker of a fence, and then just cut hay as far as I could see. Stick and rudder out of the slip. A nice little round out above the land, hay brushing the tires, then the familiar calm crashing rattle of hard ground under wheel, slowing, and now a quick burst of noise and power to taxi beside the other plane and stop. Throttle back, switch off, the soft clack-clack of the propeller spinning down to stop in the total quiet of July. The pilot of the Travelair sat in the hay, his back against the left wheel of his airplane, and he watched me. For half a minute, I watched him too, looking at the mystery of his calm. I wouldn't have been so cool just to sit there and watch another plane land in a field with me and park 10 yards away. I nodded, liking him without knowing why. You looked lonely, I said across the distance between us. So did you. I don't mean to bother you if I'm one too many. I'll be on my way. No. I've been waiting for you. I smiled at that. Sorry I'm late. That's all right. I pulled off my helmet and goggles, climbed out of the cockpit, and stepped to the ground. This feels good when you've been a couple hours in the fleet. Hope you don't mind ham and cheese, he said. Ham and cheese, maybe an ant. No handshake, no introduction of any kind. He was not a large man, hair to his shoulders, blacker than the rubber of the tire he leaned against. His eyes dark as hawk's eyes, the kind I like in a friend, and in anyone else make me uncomfortable indeed. He could have been a karate master on his way to some quietly violent demonstration. I accepted the sandwich with a thermos cup of water. Who are you anyway? I said. Years I've been hopping rides, never seen another barnstormer out in these fields. Not much else I'm fit to do, he said, happily enough. A little mechanicking, welding, roughneck bit, skinning cats. I stay in one place too long, I got problems. So I made the airplane, and now I'm in the barnstorming business. What kind of cat? I've been mad for diesel tractors since I was a kid. D8s, D9s. Just for a little while in Ohio. D9s? Big as a house. Double compound low gear. Can they really push a mountain? There are better ways of moving mountains, he said with a smile that lasted for maybe a tenth of a second. I leaned for a minute against the lower wing of his plane, watching him. A trick of the light, it was hard to look at the man closely, as if there were a light around his head, fading the background a faint, misty silver. Something wrong? He asked. Well, what kind of problems did you have? Oh, nothing much. I just like to keep moving these days, same as you. I took my sandwich and walked around his plane. It was a 1928 or 1929 machine, and it was completely unscratched. Factories don't make airplanes as new as his was. Parked there in the hay. 20 coats of hand-rubbed butyrate, dope, at least, paint like a mirror pulled tight over the wooden ribs of the thing. Don, in Old English, gold leaf under the rim of his cockpit, and the registration on the map case said D.W. Shimoda. The instruments were new out of the box. Original 1928 flight instruments. Varnished oak control stick and rudder bar, throttle, mixture, spark advance at the left. You never see spark advances anymore, even on the best restored antiques. No scratch anywhere. Not a patch on the fabric, not a single streak of engine oil from the cowling. Not a blade of straw on the floor of the cockpit, as though his machine hadn't flown at all, but instead had materialized on the spot through some time warp across half a century. I felt an odd, creepy cold on my neck. "How long you been hopping passengers?" I called across the plane to him. "Oh, about a month now. 5 weeks. He was lying. 5 weeks in the fields, and I don't care who you are, you've got dirt and oil on the plane, and there's straw on the cockpit floor, no matter what. But this machine, no oil on the windshield, no flying hay stains on the leading edges of the wings and tails, no bugs smashed on the propeller. This is not possible for an airplane flying through an Illinois summer. I studied the travel air another 5 minutes, and then I went back and sat down in the hay under the wing, facing the pilot. I wasn't afraid. I still liked the guy, but something was wrong. Oh yeah, I guess you guys can hear the rain probably really nice in the car. Zephyr, so show me that AI can generate this? What? I'm real. I really am. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm not. Why are you not telling me the truth? I have told you the truth, Richard, he said. The name is painted on my airplane, too. A person does not hop passengers for a month in a travel air without getting a little oil on the plane, my friend. A little dust, one patch in the fabric. Hay, for God's sakes, on the floor. He smiled calmly at me. There are some things you do not know. In that moment, he was a strange, other planet person. I believed what he said, but I had no way of explaining it. His jewel airplane parked out in the summer hayfield. This is true, but someday I'll know them all. And then you can have my airplane, Donald, because I won't need it to fly. He looked at me with interest and raised his black eyebrows. Oh? Tell me. I was delighted. Someone wanted to hear my theory? People couldn't fly for a long time, I don't think, because they didn't think it was possible. So, of course, they didn't learn the first little principle of aerodynamics. I want to believe that there's another principle somewhere. We don't need airplanes to fly, or move through walls, or get to planets. We can learn how to do that without machines anywhere, if we want to. Half smiled seriously and nodded his head one time. And you think that you will learn what you wish to learn by hopping $3 rides out of hayfields? The only learning that's mattered is what I've got on my own, doing what I want to do. There isn't, but if there were a soul on Earth who could teach me more of what I want to know than my airplane can, and the sky, I'd be off right now to find him, or her. The dark eyes looked at me level. Don't you believe you're guided? If you really want to learn this thing. I'm guided, yes. Isn't everyone? I've always felt something kind of watching over me, sort of. And you think you'll be led to a teacher who can help you. If the teacher doesn't happen to be me, yeah. Maybe that's just the way it happens, he said. A modern new pickup truck hushed down the road toward us. raising a thin brown fog of dust, and it stopped by the field. The door opened, an old man got out, and a girl of 10 or so. The dust stayed in the air. It was that still. "Selling rides, are you?" said the man. The field was Donald Shimoda's discovery. I stayed quiet. "Yes, sir," he said brightly. "Feel like flying, do you, today?" "If I did, you cut my..." Wait. "If I did, you cut any dittos? Turn any flip-flops with me up there?" The man's eyes twinkled, watching to see if we knew him behind his country bumpkin talk. "Will if you want to, won't if you don't." "And you want the dear Lord's fortune, I suppose?" $3 cash, sir, for 9-10 minutes in the air. That is 33 1/3 cents per minute. And worth it, most people tell me. It was an odd bystander feeling to sit there idle and listen to the way this fellow worked his trade. I liked what he said, all low-key. I had grown so used to my own way of selling rides. "Guaranteed 10 degrees cooler upstairs, folks. Come on up where only birds and angels fly. All of this for $3 only and a dozen quarters from your purse or pocket." I had forgotten there might be another way. There's a tension, flying and selling rides alone. I was used to it, but still it was there. If I don't fly passengers, I don't eat. Now, when I could sit back, not depending for my dinner on the outcome, I relaxed for once and watched. The girl stood back and watched too. Blonde, brown-eyed, solemn-faced. She was there because her grandpa was. She did not want to fly. Most often, it's the other way around. Eager kids and cautious elders. But one gets a sense for these things when it's one's livelihood. And I knew that girl wouldn't fly with us if we waited all summer. "Which one of you gentlemen?" said the man. Shimoda poured himself a cup of water. "Richard will fly you. I'm still on my lunch hour, unless you want to wait." "No, sir, I'm ready to go. Can we fly over my farm?" "Sure," I said. "Just point the way you want to go, sir." I dumped my bedroll and tool bag and cook pots from the front cockpit of the fleet, helped the man into the passenger seat, and buckled him in. Then I slid down into the rear cockpit and fastened my own seatbelt. "Give me a prop, will you, Don?" "Yep." He brought his water cup with him and stood by the propeller. "What do you want?" "Hot and brakes. Pull it slow. The impulse will take it right out of your hand." Always when somebody pulls the fleet propeller, they pull it too fast, and for complicated reasons, the engine won't start. But this man pulled it around ever so slowly, as though he had done it forever. The impulse spring snapped, sparks fired, and the cylinders and the old engine were running. That easy. He walked back to his airplane, sat down, and began talking to the girl. In a great burst of raw horsepower and flying straw, the fleet was in the air, climbing through 100 feet. If the engine quits now, we land in the corn. 500 feet. Now, and we can turn back and land in the hay. Now, and it's cow pasture west. 800 feet and level. Following the man's finger pointing through the wind southwest. 3 minutes airborne, and we circled a farmstead. Barns the color of glowing coals. House of ivory in a sea of mint. A garden in back for food, sweet corn and lettuce and tomatoes growing. The man in the front cockpit looked down through the air as we circled, the farmhouse framed between the wings and through the flying wires of the fleet. A woman appeared on the porch below, white apron over blue dress, waving. The man waved back. They would talk later of how they could see each other so well across the sky. He looked back at me finally with a nod to say, that was enough, thanks, and we could head back now. I flew a wide circle around Ferris to let the people know there was flying going on, and spiraled down over the hayfield to show them just where it was happening. As I slipped down to land, banked steeply over the corn, the travel air swept off the ground and turned at once toward the farm we had just left. I flew once with a 5-ship circus, and for a moment it was that kind of busy feeling. One plane lifting off with passengers while another lands. We touched the ground with a gentle, rumbling crash and rolled to the far end of the hay by the road. The engine stopped. The man unsnapped his safety belt, and I helped him out. He took a wallet from his overalls and counted the dollar bills, shaking his head. "That's quite a ride, son." "We think so. It's a good product we're selling." "It's your friend that's selling." "Oh, yeah?" "I'll say. Your friend could sell ashes to the devil, I'll wager, can't he now?" "How come you say that?" "The girl, of course. An airplane ride to my granddaughter, Sarah." As he spoke, he watched the travel air, a distant silver mote in the air, circling the farmhouse. He spoke as a calm man speaks, noting the dead twig in the yard has just sprouted blossoms and ripe apples. "Since she was born, that girl's been wild to death about high places. Screams, just terrified. Sarah'd no more climb a tree than she'd stir hornets bare hand. Won't climb the ladder to the loft. Won't go up there if the flood was rising in the yard. The girl's a wonder with machines, not too bad around animals, but heights, they are a caution to her. And there she is, up in the air." He talked on about this and other special times. He remembered when the barnstormers used to come through Galesburg years ago, and the Monmouth flying two-wingers the same as we flew, but doing all kinds of crazy stunts with them. I watched the distant travel air get bigger, spiral down over the field in a bank steeper than I'd ever fly with a girl afraid of heights, slip over the corn and the fence, and touch the hay in a 3-point landing that was dazzling to watch. Donald Shimoda must have been flying for a good long while to land a travel air that way. The airplane rolled to a stop beside us. No extra power required, and the propeller clanked softly to a stop. I looked closely. There were no bugs on the propeller. Not so much as a single fly killed on that 8-foot blade. I sprang to help, unshackled the girl's safety belt, opened the little front cockpit door for her, and showed her where to step her foot so it wouldn't go through the wing fabric. "How'd you like that?" I said. She didn't know I spoke. "Grandpa, I'm not afraid. I wasn't scared, honest. The house looked like a little toy, and Mom waved at me, and Dawn said I was scared just because I fell and died once, and I don't have to be afraid anymore. I'm going to be a pilot, Grandpa. I'm going to have an airplane and work on the engine myself and fly everywhere and give rides. Can I do that?" Shimoda smiled at the man and shrugged his shoulders. "He told you you're going to be a pilot, did he, Sarah?" "No, but I am. I'm already good with engines, you know that." "Well, you can talk about that with your mother. It's time for us to be getting home." The two thanked us, and one walked, one ran to the pickup truck, both changed by what had happened in the field and in the sky. 2 automobiles arrived, then another, and we had a noon rush of people who wanted to see Ferris from the air. We flew 12 or 13 flights as fast as we could get them off. And after that, I made a run to the station in town to get car gas for the fleet. Then a few passengers and a few more, and it was evening, and we flew solid back-to-back flights till sunset. A sign somewhere said population 200, and by dark I was thinking we had flown them all and some out-of-towners as well. I forgot in the rush of flying to ask about Sarah and what Don had told her, whether he had made up the story or if he thought it was true, about dying. And every once in a while I watched his plane closely while passengers changed seats. Not a mark on it, no oil drop anywhere, and he apparently flew to dodge the bugs that I had to wipe from my windshield every hour or two. There was just a little light in the sky when we quit. By the time I laid dry corn stalks in my tin stove, set them over with charcoal bricks, and lit the fire, It was full dark. The firelight throwing colors back from the airplanes parked close, and from the golden straw about us. I peered into the grocery box. It's soup or stew or SpaghettiOs, I said, or pears or peaches. Want some hot peaches? No difference, he said mildly. Anything or nothing. Man, aren't you hungry? This has been a busy day. You haven't given me much to be hungry for, unless that's good stew. I opened the stew can with my Swiss Air Officer's Escape and Evasion knife, did a similar job on the SpaghettiOs, and popped both cans over the fire. My pockets were tight with cash. This was one of the pleasanter times of the day for me. I pulled out the bills and counted, not bothering much to fold them flat. It came to $147, and I figured in my head, which was not easy for me. That's, let's see, 4, carry the 2, 49 flights today. Broke $100 day, Dawn. Just me and the fleet. You must have broke 200 easy. You fly mostly 2 at a time? Mostly, he said. About this teacher you're looking for, he said. I ain't looking for no teacher, I said. I'm counting money. I can go a week on this. I can be rained out for cold for 1 solid week. He looked at me and smiled. When you are done swimming in your money, he said, would you mind passing my stew? Thanks, Cat Ken. All right, chapter 3. For those of you just joining us, I'll probably be going for maybe one more chapter, and then the replay will be up on YouTube, and I will probably be back tomorrow evening about the same time. I start about 4:15-ish. We got chapters to go. We won't finish this one today, so you'll have to come back tomorrow to read the rest. Or go watch them on YouTube. YouTube at Move With Change on YouTube. Throngs and masses and crowds of people, torrents of humanity pouring against one man in the middle of them all. Then the people became an ocean that would drown the man. But instead of drowning, he walked over the ocean, whistling, and disappeared. The ocean of water changed to an ocean of grass. A white and gold Travel Air 4000 came down to land on the grass, and the pilot got out of the cockpit and put up a cloth sign, Fly, $3, fly. It was 3 o'clock in the morning when I woke from the dream, remembering it all and for some reason happy for it. I opened my eyes to see in the moonlight that big Travel Air parked alongside the fleet. Shimoda sat on his bedroll as he had when first I met him, leaning back against the left wheel of his plane. It wasn't that I saw him clearly, I just knew he was there. Hi, Richard, he said quietly in the dark. Does that tell you what's going on? Does what tell me? I said foggily. I was still remembering and didn't think to be surprised that he'd be awake. Your dream. The guy and the crowds and the airplane, he said patiently. You were curious about me, so now you know, okay? There were news stories. Donald Shimoda, the one they were beginning to call the Mechanic Messiah, the American Avatar, who disappeared one day in front of 25,000 eyewitnesses. I did remember that. Had read it on a small-town Ohio newspaper rack, because it was on the front page. Donald Shimoda. At your service, he said. Now you know. So, you don't have to puzzle me out anymore. Go back to sleep. I thought about that for a long time before I slept. Are you allowed? I didn't think you get a job like that the Messiah. You're supposed to save the world, aren't you? I didn't know the Messiah could just turn his keys like that and quit. I sat high on the top cowling of the fleet and considered my strange friend. Toss me a 9/16, would you please, Don? He hunted in the tool bag and pitched the wrench up to me. As with the other tools that morning, the one he threw slowed and stopped within a foot of me, floating, weightless, turning lazy in midair. The moment I touched it, though, it went heavy in my hand, an everyday chrome vanadium aircraft end wrench. Well, not quite every day. Ever since a cheap 7/8 broke in my hand, I've bought the best tools a man can have. This one happened to be a snap-on, which, as any mechanic knows, is not your everyday wrench. Might as well be made of gold, the price of the thing. But it's a joy in the hand, and you know it will never break, no matter what you do with it. Of course you can quit. Quit anything you want, if you change your mind about doing it. You can quit breathing if you want to. He floated a Phillips screwdriver for his own amusement. So I quit being the Messiah. And if I sound a little defensive, maybe it's because I am. I am still a little defensive. Better than keeping the job and hating it. A good Messiah hates nothing and is free to walk any path he wants to walk. Well, that's true for everybody, of course. We're all the sons of God, or children of the is, or ideas of the mind, or however else you want to say it. I worked at tightening the cylinder base nuts on the Kenner engine, a good power plant, the old B5. But these nuts want to loosen themselves every 100 flying hours or so, and it's wise to stay one jump ahead. Sure enough, the first one I put the wrench to went a quarter turn tighter, and I was glad for my wisdom to check them all this morning, before flying any more customers. Well, yes, Don, but it seems as if Messiah-ing would be different from other jobs, you know? Jesus going back to hammering nails for a living? Maybe it just sounds odd. He considered that, trying to see my point. I don't see your point. Strange thing about that is he didn't quit when they first started calling him Savior. Instead, at that piece of bad news, he tried logic. Okay, I'm the Son of God, but so are we all. I'm the Savior, but so are you. The works that I do, you can do. Anybody in their right mind understands that. It was hot, up on the cowling, but it didn't feel like work. The more I want to get something done, the less I call it work. Satisfying to know that I was keeping the cylinders from flying off the engine. Say, you want another wrench? He said. I do not want another wrench, and I happen to be so spiritually advanced that I consider these tricks of yours mere party games, Shimoda, of a moderately evolved soul. Or maybe a beginning hypnotist. A hypnotist? Boy, are you ever getting warm. But better hypnotist than Messiah. What a dull job. Why didn't I know it was going to be a dull job? You did, I said wisely. He just laughed. Did you ever consider, Dawn, that it might not be so easy to quit after all? That you might not just settle right down to a life of a normal human being? He didn't laugh at that. You're right, of course, he said, and ran his fingers through his black hair. Stay in any one place too long, more than a day or two, and people knew I was something strange. Brush against my sleeve, you're healed of terminal cancer, and before the week's out, I'm back in the middle of a crowd again. This airplane keeps me moving, and nobody knows where I came from or where I'm going next, which suits me pretty well. You are going to have a tougher time than you think, Dawn. Oh? Yeah, the whole motion of our time is from the material toward the spiritual. Slow as it is, it's a pretty huge motion. I don't think the world is going to let you alone. It's not me they want, it's the miracles. And those I can teach to somebody else. Let him be the Messiah. I won't tell him it's a dull job, and besides, there is no problem so big that it cannot be run away from. I slid from the cowling down to the hay and began tightening the cylinder nuts on a number 3 and 4 cylinders. Not all of them were loose, but some were. You are quoting Snoopy the dog, I believe. I'll quote the truth wherever I find it, thank you. You can't run away, Dawn. What if I start worshiping you right now? What if I get tired of working on my engine and I start begging you to heal it for me? Look, I'll give you every dime I make from now to sundown if you just teach me how to float in the air. If you don't do it, then I'll know I'm supposed to start praying to you. Holy One sent to lift my burden. He just smiled at me. I still don't think he understood that he couldn't run away. How could I know that when he didn't? Did you have the whole show, like you see in the movies from India? Crowds in the streets, billions of hands touching you, flowers and incense, golden platforms and silver tapestries for you to stand on when you spoke? No. Even before I asked for the job, I knew I couldn't stand that. So I chose the United States, and I just got the crowds. It was pain for him, remembering, and I was sorry I had brought the whole thing up. He sat in the hay and talked on, looking through me. I wanted to say, for the love of God, if you want freedom and joy so much, can't you see it's not anywhere outside of you? Say you have it and you have it. Act as if it's yours and it is. Richard, what is so damn hard about that? But they didn't even hear, most of them. Miracles, like going to auto races to see the crashes. They came to me to see miracles. First it's frustrating, then after a while it just gets dull. I have no idea how the other messiahs could stand it. When you put it that way, it does lose some of its charm, I said, tightening the last nut and put the tools away. Where are we headed today? We walked to my cockpit, and instead of wiping the bugs off my windshield, he passed his hand over it, and the smashed little creatures came alive and flew away. His own windshield never needed cleaning, of course, and now I knew his engine would never need any maintenance either. I don't know, he said. I don't know where we're headed. What do you mean? You know the past and the future of all things. You know exactly where we're going. He sighed. Yeah, but I try not to think about it. For a while, as I was working on the cylinders, I got to thinking, wow, all I have to do is stay with this guy and there will be no problems. Nothing bad will happen and everything will turn out fine. But the way he said that, I try not to think about it, made me remember what had happened to the other messiahs sent into this world. Common sense shouted at me to turn south after takeoff and get as far away from the man as I could get. But as I said, it gets lonely flying this way alone, and I was glad to find him, just to have somebody to talk with who knew an aileron from a vertical stabilizer. I should have turned south. But after takeoff, I stayed with him, and we flew north and east into that future that he tried not to talk about. Okay, one more chapter, and then my kid's probably going to jump in. Okay. Where do you learn all this stuff, Dawn? You know so much, or maybe I just think you do. No, you do know a lot. Is it all practice? Don't you get any formal training to be a master? They give you a book to read. I hung a fresh-washed silk scarf on the flying wires and stared at him. A book. Savior's Manual. It's kind of the Bible for masters. There's a copy around here somewhere if you're interested. Yes, You mean a regular book that tells you... He rummaged around for a while in the baggage space behind the headrest of the Travelair and came up with a small volume bound in what looked like suede. Messiah's Handbook. Reminders for the Advanced Soul. What do you mean, Savior's Manual? This says Messiah's Handbook. Something like that. He started to pick up things around his airplane as though he thought it was time to be moving on. I leafed through the book, a collection of maxims and short paragraphs. Perspective. Use it or lose it. If you turn to this page, you're forgetting that what is going on around you is not reality. Think about that. Remember where you came from, where you're going, and why you created the mess you got yourself into in the first place. You're going to die a horrible death, remember. It's all good training, and you'll enjoy it more if you keep the facts in mind. Take your dying with some seriousness, however. Laughing on the way to your execution is not generally understood by less advanced life forms, and they'll call you crazy. Have you read this about losing your perspective, Dawn? No. It says you have to die a horrible death. You don't have to. Depends on the circumstances and how you feel like arranging things. Are you going to die a horrible death? I don't know. Not much point in it, would you think, now that I've quit the job. A quiet little ascension ought to be enough. I'll decide in a few weeks when I finish what I came for. I put him down for kidding, the way he did from time to time, and didn't know then that he was serious about the few weeks. I went on into the book. It was the kind of knowledge a master would need, all right. Learning is finding out what you already know. Doing is demonstrating that you know it. Teaching is reminding others that they know just as well as you. You are all learners, doers, and teachers. Your only obligation in any lifetime is to be true to yourself. Being true to anyone else or anything else is not only impossible, but the mark of a fake Messiah. The simplest questions are the most profound. Where were you born? Where is your home? Where are you going? What are you doing? Think about these once in a while and watch your answers change. You teach best what you most need to learn. You're awfully quiet over there, Richard, said Shimoda, as though he had wanted to talk more. Yeah, I said, and went on reading. If there was a book for masters only, I didn't want to let go of it. Live never to be ashamed of anything you do, if anything you do is or say is published around the world, even if what is published is not true. Your friends will know you better in the first minute you meet than your acquaintances will know you in 1,000 years. The best way to avoid responsibility is to say, I've got responsibilities. I noticed something strange about the book. These pages don't have numbers on them, Dawn. No, he said. You just open it and whatever you need most is there. A magic book. No, you can do it with any book. You can do it with an old newspaper. Yeah. You can do it with an old newspaper if you read carefully enough. Haven't you done that? holds some problem in your mind, then open any book handy and see what it tells you. No? Well, try it sometime. I tried. I closed my eyes and wondered what was going to happen to me if I stayed much longer with this strange person. It was fun to be with him, but I couldn't shake the sense that something not fun at all was going to happen to him before long, and I didn't want to be around when it did. Thinking that, I opened the book with my eyes still closed, then opened them to read. You are led through your lifetime by the inner learning creature, the playful spiritual being that is your real self. Don't turn away from possible futures before you're certain you don't have anything to learn from them. You're always free to change your mind and choose a different future or a different past. Choose a different past. Literally or figuratively? Or how did it mean? I think my mind just boggled, Dawn. I don't know how I could possibly learn this stuff. Practice. A little theory and a lot of practice, he said. Take you about a week and a half. A week and a half? Yep. Believe you know all answers and you know all answers. Believe you're a master and you are one. I never said I wanted to be any master. That's right, he said. You didn't. But I kept the handbook, and he never asked for it back. Okay, we are pausing right there at chapter 5. And I will see you, my friends, tomorrow for chapter 5 and some more. Anybody want to ask a question to the handbook? Or don't even ask it out loud. I'll give first gift gets a handbook reading. If you want to throw a gift out and then imagine the thing in your head that you want to ask about. I won't even look at the pages. Whoop whoop! Thanks, Star Muse. Okay, you ready? Got it in your head? Right or left page? Ryan, 7. Star Muse, right or left page? Which one do you want? Brenda, you're next. Thank you for the rose. Okay. I'll give you both. One page says, live enough of what you've always dreamed of doing, and there's no room left for feeling bad. And the other is, don't pray to get God's attention, to fix some wrong. Pray to get your own attention and realize that nothing needs fixing. Okay, Brenda. For the rose, we're going to go ahead and pick your pages, and then you tell me right or left, okay? Got it in your head? So much ado about nothing. Tell me when you're ready, Brenda. Right or left? Okay. Oh, both. I'll just give you both. Brenda, if you will practice being fictional for a while, you will understand that fictional characters are sometimes more real than people with bodies and heartbeats. And the other page says, your conscience is the measure of the honesty of your selfishness. Listen to it carefully. Your conscience is the measure of the honesty of your selfishness. Your conscience is the measure of the honesty of your selfishness. Listen to it carefully. Hey, Corey. I was just reading a couple chapters from Illusions, The Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah. I will be putting the replay of the first 5 chapters up on YouTube at Move With Change, so please, please, please go follow me over there. Thank you. I got a haircut. I've been needing one. Thanks so much, Brenda. Conscience. Your conscience is the measure of the honesty of your selfishness, right? So, the Illusions, the book Illusions, also comes with a Messiah's Handbook. So I was handing out Messiah's Handbook quotes for gifts while I wait for my son to come out of MMA. Maybe he doesn't know I'm in here. It's all fogged up now. You'll float away someday. I won't float away, actually. I've spent most of my life floating and learning to tether down to the ground. That's most of the work that I've been doing in this blessed little life, is learning how to attach myself to the material world enough not to float away. I don't know. You guys think he's done? You don't think he's coming home with me? Anybody else want another one?
What is that?
See, I've never read this book directly through, so I don't actually know all the pages, but I just popped up on some sort of random page that looked totally different than all the rest. Did I just imagine that? That's weird. Yeah, nope, there it is. Namaste, Mortimer. Answer was, age gracefully. You're in good shape for the shape you're in. There you go. You are so welcome, Brenda. That one's a good one. I actually have never read that one before. So I've never read this book from cover to cover. I have always used this book like that, as a divination tool, pretty much just asking questions. So occasionally, especially when I read it for other people, I get new quotes that I've never freaking seen before. And guys, do me a favor, remember to give me a follow and go over to YouTube and follow me at Move With Change on YouTube as well. I put the replays for my reading sessions up there. I also do live classes in the morning Pacific time and astrology in the evenings. So keep an eye out. I've got a big, hey, thanks, Corey. Okay, sorry, I missed it. Okay, Corey, you ready for one? I hope I didn't miss you. Are you still in here? All right. Are you ready? I get 2 pages because there's a left and a right page, and I've decided that you can decide what's for you. If not, both are for you. Here you go, Corey. Okay. Corey, your philosophy is a way of looking at the universe that guides you in daily life. You probably won't find it in textbooks. And the biggest reason you don't get answers is that you haven't asked the questions. Zephyr, it's always left, far left. I gotta get, are you on YouTube? Hey, Zen Warrior, how are you, my friend? Zephyr, are you on YouTube, babe? I gotta give you a follow on YouTube. Hells yeah. So, that's one of my favorite thought games is how do I reframe this question to get a different answer? right? Because when we look at things like even like statistics and studies and whatnot, it is all about the way that you ask the question to get the answer. That's why statistics are actually unreliable, is because you can ask, if you ask the question, you can always create a different answer. Not always, but often create different answers, manufacture different answers through that means. And so it's a fun thought game to reframe and reframe and reframe my questions until the answer rings, echoes through me. Tumblr. I haven't touched Tumblr yet, but to be honest, I'm trying to spread across different platforms because TikTok is lagging my stuff. I left Facebook because it's just no, I don't like it over there. I don't want to be over there. I don't have any interest in being over there. But for those of you who are new here and don't know me, my name is Reverend Deborah. I am a movement facilitator, movement in breath, body, and being. I am your Shenanigans shaman, and I am also the owner of Move with Change, where we are building an online mindfulness community called the CAYA Sangha, CAYA. CAYA stands for Come As You Are, because when we're all doing this work, right, this stuff, discovering the inner Messiah, coming home to yourself, recognizing the divinity that runs through all of us, recognizing that there is a certificate of Messiahdom right here in your pocket this whole time, and it's always been there, and all you had to do was ask the right questions. When you're doing that, it gets messy, it gets awkward, and a lot of times you might find yourself in the middle of people who do not know how to have the conversations that you're looking to have, who do not know how to ask the questions that you are starting to answer. So come join us at the CAYA Sangha. The CAYA Sangha is that place where you can show up just as you are, because authenticity is the goal. Authenticity is the purest expression of your divinity as it flows through you. And we are just vessels for divinity, in my opinion. In my experience, in my opinion, that's what I have come to understand. So, if you'd like to just join the CAYA Sangha, you can do so at movewithchange.com. Or if you subscribe here on TikTok, you get a free month to the CAYA Sangha. I am, like I said, trying to do multiple platforms. The CAYA Sangha is, you get twice weekly group coaching, a weekly mindfulness practice sessions. You get completely unfettered access to every single workshop I put on, which I put on multiple workshops every year. And then I repackage my workshops every year to make them bigger and better. So the price always goes up every year for everybody else, but not for you guys if you are in the CAYA Sangha. So, but yeah, I'm trying to also, I teach live classes 4 times a week. And then I also do an astrology weekly peekly, which is now on Saturday nights. And if you're a subscriber, you also get to do natal chart readings, astrology session on Friday nights with me. I just said it. Didn't I say it on Monday? I will be posting a schedule, I promise. And my head said, the pirate brain goes, don't count on that. And I tried my ass off last night to get the schedule posted, and my computer stopped working. My internet started slowing down. Shit wouldn't download, and it disappeared when it downloaded. So I don't know what the problem is. The universe does not want me to give you the damn schedule. So the blessed schedule. So I don't know what else to do about it. I don't know. But I love you guys. I'm going to pop off here real quick. Where's my son? He's usually done at 5:15. He's the youngest one who goes to this MMA thing, so I think he likes to be in there with the big kids, and the adults start filtering too. Anybody else want one last one before we go? And you're testing a new laptop? I've got 2 laptops and both are breaking. I swear, there's something, I don't know what it is. I'm going to keep teaching those classes. And I'm going to keep building the Sangha. I'm going to keep building the... Is that for you? Want another one? Okay. My phone's about to die, you guys. I am manifesting a new laptop. Damn right. I'm manifesting a new laptop, better internet. Well, Zephyr, if you're only far left, your left, the far left, says, the only thing that shatters dreams is compromise. And a camera. I need better lighting. I need a whole better setup. I am manifesting a fucking rocking live class setup because I am tired of you guys giving you guys blurry videos and poor lighting. The only thing that shatters dreams is compromise. And if you guys are not familiar with Richard Bach, please go look up Richard Bach. He has a number of books, a prolific writer, but we are going to be working through multiple of his books on lives like this. Quit settling. I know, right? But then I have to update my self-worth. And that's like a whole reprogramming of like physical body and mind and spirit and heart, right? Recognizing my triggers so that when the things come to me that trigger me to avoid abundance, then I get, you know what I mean? It's a process. The only thing that shatters dreams is compromise. That's right. Here we are sitting there talking about dreams. Okay, fulfilling dreams. No compromise. No compromise. I will not settle for poor quality films, videos. I will not settle for being shadow banned. TikTok. Mindfulness is so nefarious. You mean activating the self-healing properties? This body's self-healing property? Yeah, you're right. That is pretty nefarious. Take a cut out of the big fat cat's pocket, wouldn't it? And yet we can. That's the whole thing. That's the whole point. Not only coming home to ourselves, but coming home to our personal power. Coming home to our authenticity. Standing in that personal power is what authenticity is. We cannot be authentic and be powerless and feel powerless. Because we are not. When we recognize that we are vessels for divinity and that God is, the spirit, universe, whatever source, whatever you want to call it, we are that manifest. We are the union of the divine masculine and divine feminine manifest here on the middle ground between the two. Middle Earth. New Earth on its way as we elevate the collective. I do like vision boards. But to elevate the collective, we have to put the power back squarely where it belongs, which is with us, with the people, right? It's a travesty to me that we are taught that all of our power and strength and knowledge comes from outside of ourselves. But I also understand why we would be taught that, right? Because to know that our body is self-healing, to know that knowledge comes from within, that knowledge to learn is remembering, and that we are all equally as powerful as the other. Well, it's not easy to manipulate powerful, autonomous beings. Better to keep them ignorant, feeling small and weak and scared, so they stay meek. It is nefarious. With sovereignty comes recognition. That sovereignty has to be claimed. Yeah. There are real things at stake, not just for the collective and not just for people far away from us, but for every single person. And we recognize what we have sold off to the highest bidder, unconsciously, unintentionally, oftentimes just by proxy. And we realize how much has already been taken from us and how much we have to take back. Hi, Erica. Yes, with astrology. Yeah, that's another one of those things, right? The reason I became a non-denominational reverend, actually, was because I was raised Catholic. I thought I wanted to become a nun. I read that book cover to cover multiple times and was like, there is so much to this. I mean, as a child, I had really early, very profound spiritual experiences and knew that this was my path. And a lot of that, reading the book, was like remembering. And then I think it was my mother who talked about Buddhism, and she shared with me ideas of the Buddha and some stories and teachings, and those felt like remembering. And then I studied Hinduism and Judaism and Sikhism, you know, and went through all of these different religions, and then went, I remember, right? The Buddha and the Dharma and the Sangha. And there's one of my favorite quotes from another really beautiful soul. We just recently lost him in the past few years, Thich Nhat Hanh. If you have not listened to Thich Nhat Hanh, I highly encourage you to do so. It is the way he speaks. You know that sparkle in somebody's eye, right? Somebody who's just got that inner joy, and you can see that inner light sparkling through their eyes. I hear that in his voice. And Thich Nhat Hanh, yes. And he says many things, many beautiful things, but he also says that the next coming of the Buddha is, or the enlightened one, is unlikely to be a singular person, but instead a Sangha, a community of people practicing mindfulness together. And that is the philosophy behind CAYA Sangha, is to show up just as you are, whatever path you're on, wherever path you came from, wherever you're headed. As long as you are willing, right, able to show up with curiosity and willingness, then I invite you to come join us. And for this little $7.99 a month here, you get a free month at the CAYA Sangha, which is a $77 value. So the cool kids on Instagram are reading Franz Fanon. I don't know who that is. All right, it is after 5:30. I'm gonna go have to get my punk ass kid. He's sitting in there doing punk ass things. Oh no, here he comes. You know, 7 going on 17. Okay, guys, I love you so much. My phone's about to die anyway. I will see y'all. I'll be back tomorrow. He's got MMA tomorrow too, so I'm going to bring him back tomorrow, and I will read another couple of chapters. Love you guys. Don't forget, the replay will be on YouTube at Move With Change. Yeah, you're very welcome.